He closed the car door too softly, and that softness felt like an insult. My husband stood there in the parking lot, one hand on the wheel, the other rubbing the back of his neck as if he were the one bracing for bad news. Then he said it, quiet, casual, almost careless. "Oh, your uncle has guests today, a woman from abroad, and her kid. Hope that's okay." My daughter stopped breathing for a second. I saw it. The way her fingers froze around the strap of her weekend bag, the way her shoulders lifted like someone had just pressed a cold hand against her spine. She didn't speak at first. She just stared at him, and the silence in the car tightened until even the air felt embarrassed. He looked straight ahead, avoiding her eyes. He always did that when he knew he'd done something wrong. "I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't want you overthinking," he added, as if holding back information was an act of kindness. My daughter's voice cracked. "You knew I wouldn't want this. You knew." Her father exhaled through his nose, sharp and defensive. "They're just people. You'll survive." I watched her flinch. It was small, barely a twitch, but it cut deeper than shouting ever could. She pressed her palms together, trying to steady her breathing. "I came home for a quiet weekend. Just family. That's all I wanted." He shrugged. "Well, plans change." I felt her heart break more than I heard it. The way disappointment slid across her expression, like a shadow passing over a field. She wasn't angry yet. Hurt always arrived first, and then she whispered, "Take me home." The tremor in her voice rattled something inside me. She didn't slam the door when we got back home. That was the part that scared me. My daughter always closed things gently when she was hurt. Doors, conversations, her own heart. The quiet click echoed through the hallway like a confession she didn't want to say out loud. She dropped her weekend bag by the coat rack and stood there, unmoving. Her breath came shallow, held too high in her chest. I could see the memories stacking behind her eyes. Every time her father had done this, every time he'd ambushed her with strangers, every time he'd insisted it was no big deal. I stepped closer. "Sweetheart." She lifted a hand, asking for a moment. Not to think, just to keep herself from shattering. In the kitchen, her father walked in like nothing had happened. He took a bottle of water, twisted the cap, leaned against the counter. "You overreacted," he said. "It was just a couple of guests." The words hit her like a shove. Her voice came out thin but steady. "Dad, you didn't give me a choice. Again. You waited until I couldn't say no." He sighed, rolling his eyes at the ceiling. "You always make things so dramatic." And there it was, the cruelest line of the evening. Not loud, not harsh, but dismissive enough to hollow her out. She bit her lip, her whole body tightening. That sentence landed the way a door slams in someone's face. "I just wanted a peaceful weekend," she whispered, barely audible. "A safe one." But he didn't soften. He didn't even blink. She looked at me then, her face pale, her voice breaking on the edges. I'm so tired of feeling ambushed in my own family. Something inside her father flinched, just a flicker, but he masked it with irritation. Too late. She tried to retreat to her room, but the past followed her down the hallway like a shadow with a long memory. I watched her grip the doorframe, steadying herself, her breath shaking through clenched teeth. This wasn't just about today. This was every surprise guest, every last-minute ambush, every time her father had shoved her into a room full of noise she never agreed to step into. I followed slowly, giving her space, but not letting her disappear. When she sat on the edge of her bed, her shoulders collapsed forward as if the day had pressed its whole weight into the small space between her ribs. "He always does this," she whispered. "Every time I think he sees me, he proves he doesn't." A quiet thud came from the hallway, her father pacing, muttering something under his breath. Then he called out, sharp and frustrated, "You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Your uncle's guests aren't monsters." She shut her eyes. the way someone does when a blow is coming. I stepped out and met him halfway. "Stop," I said softly. "You hurt her." He threw his hands up. "I didn't hurt anyone. She's 25. She can handle meeting people." "Not without warning," I replied. "She's not a child." "No," I said. "She's anxious, and you know that?" He scoffed, too loud. "She needs to grow out of it." My daughter heard that. I knew she did. Her face tightened, eyes going glassy. The kind of hurt you don't show unless you've been carrying it for years. She stepped into the hallway, her voice brittle. "Dad, why is it always on me to change? Why can't you just respect what I need?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. No apology, just silence that felt like a closed door. She nodded once, as if that confirmed everything. Then she grabbed her bag. She moved through the living room with her overnight bag hanging from one hand, but it looked heavier now, as if it carried every apology she never received. I watched her father straighten from the counter, startled by how fast the moment was slipping away. "Where are you going?" he asked, stepping forward. She didn't stop, didn't even turn. "Home." "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped, voice rising too quickly. "It's not that serious." That line? It broke something. I saw it in the way her back stiffened, the way her breath hitched before she exhaled through her nose. She turned slowly, her face calm, in a way that wasn't calm at all. "You keep deciding what's serious for me," she said quietly. "You keep deciding what I can handle, what I should handle, what I shouldn't make a fuss about." He opened his mouth to object, but she continued. "I told you last year I can't do these surprises. You promised, and you still did it." Her voice cracked on the last word. Again. A long silence stretched across the room. He shifted his weight, instantly defensive. "Well, I'm sorry I didn't tell you a few hours earlier. It's not like I brought 100 strangers. It's just a friend and a kid." She swallowed hard. I saw her jaw tremble before she steadied it with quiet determination. "Dad, I didn't agree to spend my weekend performing for people I've never met. I came here to relax with you, to feel safe, not to be blindsided," he frowned. "You're exaggerating." That was the final blow. A soft one, a cruel one. Her eyes glistened, but she stayed composed. "Maybe to you, never to me." She lifted the handle of her bag. He reached out. Not to stop her, but instinctively, as if realizing too late what he had done. She stepped back. This time, he let his hand fall. The evening light from the front window fell across her face as she put on her shoes, and for the first time all day, she looked done. Not angry, not dramatic, just emptied out, like someone who had reached the end of a long, invisible rope. Her father followed her to the doorway, the frustration in his steps louder than his words. "You're throwing the whole weekend away over nothing," he said. "We drove all this way. Your uncle was expecting us. I was expecting—" She cut him off, but not with anger, with exhaustion. "You set me up." He blinked. "What?" "You waited until I couldn't avoid it, until I was already in the car, already here, already packed, already committed." Her voice softened into something painful. "You knew I'd say no, so you didn't give me the option." His jaw tightened. "I just wanted you to come. You always back out when people are involved." Her shoulders sagged. "Because I can't handle surprises like that. Because it drains me. Because I spend the whole time trying not to fall apart." He scoffed. "It's just people. You can talk to people." That line was a wound slicing back open. I stepped closer, placing a hand on the doorframe to steady myself. No one raised their voice. Not yet, but the air had gone sharp, like a room waiting for something to break. She met his eyes, and for a split second I saw the child she used to be, the one who hid behind me at noisy birthday parties, the one who cried quietly in the car after being overwhelmed, the one whose father always said she'd grow out of it. She whispered, "I'm tired of being forced into discomfort to make you feel better about me." He had no answer, not a single one. She stepped outside, and the air was cooler than I expected, as if the world itself understood she needed something gentle. Her father followed her onto the porch, his footsteps uneven, his breath tight, the way it got when he realized control was slipping through his fingers. "Come on," he said, almost pleading. "Don't leave like this. You're making it awkward. Your uncle will think something's wrong." She turned around slowly. "Something is wrong." He froze. "It's wrong that you keep deciding what I can tolerate. It's wrong that you hide things so I won't say no. It's wrong that you'd rather ambush me than respect my boundaries." Her voice didn't rise. It grew quieter, and somehow, quieter hurt more. He took a step closer, reaching for her bag again, then stopped himself mid-movement. As if touching it might confirm she was really leaving. "You didn't even try," he muttered. "You didn't even meet them. You just gave up." She shook her head, and a tear escaped before she could stop it. "Dad, I'm not giving up. I'm protecting myself. And the fact that you see that as failure says everything." A car drove past the street, breaking the silence with a low hum. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked twice and went quiet again. But on that porch, time felt still, frozen between a father who didn't understand and a daughter who was exhausted from trying to explain. She wiped her face with the edge of her sleeve, inhaling shakily. "I wanted a peaceful weekend. I wanted time with you." Not a performance, not a surprise test of who I'm expected to be. He looked away, jaw clenched, shame flickering across his features before pride smothered it. When he looked back at her, she was already walking down the steps. She walked toward the sidewalk as if every step required permission she had never been given before. The late afternoon light stretched long across the pavement, turning her silhouette thinner, smaller, like a version of herself she was finally letting go of. Her father stayed on the porch, one hand gripping the railing, his knuckles whitening as if holding tighter could undo what he'd done. "Wait," he said at last. She stopped, but only because the words sounded fragile, like something breaking rather than something calling her back. He swallowed hard. "You could have told me you were disaffected." She turned slowly, eyes red but steady. "I did. For years." He flinched, the truth landing where excuses couldn't shield him. He shifted his weight, looked away, rubbed his palms together in restless circles. "I just wanted you to be part of things, to not isolate." She blinked, and tears slipped down without resistance. "Dad, I'm not isolating. I'm choosing where I feel safe. Those are not the same." He didn't have a script for that. Not a defense. Not a reply. Just silence that admitted more than he ever said out loud. A breeze moved through the yard, soft enough to lift a few strands of her hair. She tucked them behind her ear with a trembling hand. "I can't spend my life being dragged into moments I didn't choose just so you don't feel uncomfortable with who I am." He shook his head once, a tiny gesture, maybe denial, maybe regret, but too small, too late. Her voice softened, the final thread of patience unraveling. "You keep acting like my boundaries are insults. They're not. They're the only way I can breathe." Then she turned, not in anger, in release. And her father watched her go, realizing that this time she wasn't walking away from a gathering. She was walking toward herself. She reached the corner of the street before slowing down, the weight of the day settling into her shoulders like a coat she never meant to wear. I followed her far enough to see her silhouette pause beneath the lamppost, but not close enough to intrude. Some moments belong to the person living them. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to steady her breath. Not crying loudly, she never did, but letting the tears slip in quiet streaks down her cheeks. The kind of crying that comes from a place exhaustion lives in. Behind her, her father stood frozen on the porch. He opened his mouth twice as if a thought might form into an apology, then closed it both times. Pride stitched his lips together, fear held his tongue, and shame filled the space between them. That combination had kept him silent for years. She didn't look back. A car's headlights swept briefly across her face as it passed, catching the silver line of tears she tried to brush away. She took a deep breath, then another, grounding herself in the kind of calm that comes after choosing to stop fighting a losing battle. When I finally stepped closer, she didn't move. She just whispered, barely louder than the breeze. "Why does it always feel like I have to defend who I am?" I touched her shoulder. "You don't, not forever." She leaned into my hand for a second, letting her guard slip just enough to reveal how long she'd been holding herself upright. "I just wanted a simple day," she murmured. "A quiet pool, some sun. Just peace." "You deserved that," I said. She nodded, her voice breaking on the inhale. "Then why does choosing peace hurt this much?" "Because sometimes peace comes dressed like loss, and she was only just learning that." We walked the rest of the block together, slow steps on uneven pavement, letting the quiet settle where the hurt had been shouting all evening. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her cardigan, the fabric dampening under the weight of tears she didn't want to shed but couldn't hold back anymore. "I shouldn't feel guilty," she said suddenly, voice cracking. "Why do I always end up feeling guilty?" "Because you were taught to," I answered gently. "Not on purpose, but it happened." She swallowed hard. "I keep thinking maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I should just be different." I stopped her with a look. "You don't need to be different to be loved." Her breath trembled. She wanted to believe me. God, she did. But years of being pushed past her boundaries had carved doubt into her bones. And now she was trying to unlearn something she never chose to learn in the first place. Behind us, the house was still. No footsteps, no apology chasing after her. Just the quiet outline of a man who didn't know how to say what he should have said years ago. She shook her head. "He'll think I overreacted." "Let him," I said. "Let people think what they will. You're allowed to choose yourself." A soft cry escaped her, small and involuntary. She covered her mouth as if embarrassed by the sound. I pulled her close, and for the first time that day, her body stopped bracing for the next wound. "I really did want today," she whispered into my shoulder. "I needed it." "I know, and now it's gone." I held her tighter, feeling her heart break in the tension of her arms around me. "It's gone," she repeated, smaller, like she was grieving more than a ruined afternoon. Sometimes what breaks us isn't the big betrayals. Sometimes it's the smallest, most preventable hurt. We reached the small park at the end of the street, the one with the chipped bench and the flickering lamp that always buzzed at dusk. She sat down slowly, as if lowering herself into a space where she could finally unravel without anyone judging the shape of her pain. I sat beside her, leaving just enough room so she didn't feel crowded, but close enough so she didn't feel alone. She rubbed her palms together, grounding herself. "I kept imagining the pool," she said softly. "The water, the quiet, just floating, breathing." Her eyes glistened. "I needed silence, not strangers." I nodded, and now I feel stupid for caring this much. "You're not stupid," I whispered. "You're sensitive." That's not a flaw. But her father had treated it like one for years, and she'd absorbed that message until it echoed louder than any reassurance I could offer. A group of teenagers passed by on bicycles, their laughter trailing behind them. She watched them for a moment, envy flickering across her expression, not for their youth, but for the ease in their breathing, the effortless way they existed without apology. She tucked her knees up slightly. "If he'd told me this morning," she murmured, "I would have prepared myself. I would have tried. I really would have." "I know. But he chose the one moment when I couldn't say no. He always chooses that moment." A long silence followed. She wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned off earlier. What remained was the quiet ache of being misunderstood by someone she desperately wanted to feel safe with. "Why doesn't he get it?" she whispered. "Because he's never had to," I answered. "He's never been the one overwhelmed." She nodded slowly, eyes falling to her hands. And in that dim park light, she looked like someone mourning something simple. Trust. A breeze moved across the park, brushing the leaves, carrying the distant hum of traffic. She rested her chin on her knee, hugging her legs as if trying to make herself smaller, softer, less visible. I could tell she wasn't hiding from me. She was hiding from the way the day made her feel. "I hate that this happens every time," she whispered. "I hate that I brace for it now. Like part of me expects him to trick me." The word landed heavy between us. Trick. It wasn't malicious, it wasn't cruel in the sharp-edged way people imagine harm. But it was a pattern, a quiet erosion that made her doubt the ground she walked on. She looked up at the sky, blinking back fresh tears. "I know he doesn't mean it. I know he thinks he's helping me push my limits or whatever, but all it does is make me feel like my limits don't matter." I placed a gentle hand on her back. Limits matter most when people don't understand them. She swallowed. "He thinks I'm fragile." "No," I said. "He thinks you're inconvenient, and that's the part that hurts." Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected that answer, not because it wasn't true, but because no one had ever said it out loud. She wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. "Is it wrong that I didn't want to be around strangers?" "No." "Is it wrong that I didn't want to pretend I'm fine?" "No." She exhaled shakily. "Then why does he make me feel like it is?" Because he didn't understand the silent panic she fought. Because he mistook her coping for childishness. Because he didn't realize that forcing her into discomfort didn't make her stronger. It just made her smaller in his eyes. She looked down at her trembling fingers. "I just wish he saw me," she said, and the way her voice broke on that last word, it carried a lifetime in it. She leaned back against the bench, letting her head rest against the cool metal. A few seconds passed, quiet, trembling seconds, before she whispered, "I don't want to resent him. I really don't." Resentment was a slow poison in families. I felt it lingering in her voice, heavy but still young enough to be softened if handled gently. She rubbed her palms together again, grounding herself in the movement. "I know he thinks he's doing the right thing," she said. "He thinks forcing me into situations will make me better. But all it does is make me feel broken, like I'm failing a test I didn't sign up for." She blinked hard, a tear slipping down despite her effort to stop it. "And then I end up hating myself because I can't just be normal." I shook my head. "You are normal. You just have different thresholds." "But he acts like my thresholds are flaws." A small child ran across the grass nearby, laughing as his mother tried to catch him. The sound should have been light, harmless, but even that tenderness seemed to deepen the ache in her chest. She watched them for a moment, eyes softening with something close to longing. "I wish he understood without me having to explain it every time," she murmured. "I wish he'd stop treating what I feel as an inconvenience." "He doesn't know how deeply it hurts you," I said. "He should," she answered quietly. "I've told him." The honesty in that sentence struck me. Raw, simple, impossible to argue with. She took a shaky breath. "Do you know what the worst part is?" Her voice dropped. "Every time he springs something on me, I think, maybe this time he'll listen if I react. Maybe he'll see how hard it is, and every time he treats it like I'm just making a fuss." Her lips trembled. "It makes me feel invisible." And that truth, spoken softly, painfully, hung in the air between us like something fragile, finally given a voice. The sky had shifted to a deeper blue, the kind that warns night is coming, even if the streetlights haven't caught up yet. She pulled her cardigan tighter around herself, though the air wasn't cold. It was the kind of gesture people make when their heart feels exposed. She whispered, "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make him understand without tearing myself apart every time." You shouldn't have to tear yourself apart, I said. Not to be heard. She let out a small, trembling laugh, one that held no humor. He thinks I'm dramatic. He thinks everything overwhelms me because I'm weak. Sweetheart, I murmured, you are not weak, you're worn down. She looked at me, eyes tired but searching. Is there a difference? Yes, one can heal. Her lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. The silence between us felt softer now, less jagged, as if giving shape to what she hadn't been able to say aloud for years. Finally, she whispered, I don't want to go back home yet. I need a moment before facing him again. You can stay here as long as you need. She nodded, grateful in a quiet, fragile way. I just needed today to feel simple. I wanted to sit by a pool and not think about how I have to perform every time there are strangers. I wanted to feel like my father was someone I could relax around. Her throat tightened. Instead, it felt like he was setting a trap. The word trembled between us, honest, heavy, undeniable. Maybe he didn't mean to, she continued softly, but that doesn't make it hurt less. A leaf drifted down beside her foot. She looked at it the way people look at small, delicate things they relate to. I'm tired of pretending I'm fine, she said. I'm tired of being brave for him. And there, in the fading light, her truth finally stopped hiding. We stayed on that worn-down bench until the sky dimmed enough for the lamps to hum awake. A soft glow settled over her face, catching the streaks of dried tears, but she didn't wipe them anymore. She wasn't hiding from herself now, only resting. She exhaled slowly. It always starts the same way, she murmured. He tells me we're doing something together. Just us. Something calm. Something I can handle. And then, she snapped her fingers softly, almost apologetically. There's suddenly an audience. I nodded. I'd seen it for years. The optimism in her step every time she thought she would finally get a quiet moment with the one parent she still hoped would understand her. And the disappointment that always arrived like an uninvited guest. He doesn't think it's a big deal, she continued. He thinks I can just adjust, flip some switch. Be okay. And you can't, I said gently. Her voice wavered. No, I can't. And it's not because I'm difficult, it's because I need safety, predictability. I need to know what's coming so I can prepare myself. A small, painful smile touched her lips. And he thinks that makes me fragile. She looked down at her hands again. They were trembling lightly, not from fear, but from the kind of exhaustion that sinks into bone. I hate that he thinks this makes me less, she whispered. Like if he keeps throwing me into situations I didn't agree to, eventually I'll become someone easier for him to handle. You're not meant to be handled, I said quietly. You're meant to be known. Her breath hitched and she closed her eyes. Maybe that's what hurts the most, she said, knowing he loves me. But not in the way I need to feel safe. The lamp above us flickered once, then steadied, soft, steady, unjudging. For the first time all day, she finally breathed without flinching. When we finally stood up from the bench, the night had settled fully over the neighborhood. The air was gentler now, carrying the faint scent of someone's backyard grill and the distant murmur of a television drifting through an open window. She wrapped her arms around herself as we walked back toward the house, her steps slow but steadier than before. Do you think he's still angry? She asked quietly. I think he's confused, I answered. Angry comes easy to people who don't understand their own impact. She nodded, but her eyes drifted toward the sidewalk, tracing cracks as if looking for a place to anchor her thoughts. I don't want to fight with him. I just want him to stop putting me in situations where I feel like I'm drowning before I even walk in the door. We approached the house. The porch light was on, casting a soft glow on the steps. Her father was no longer outside. The silence felt heavier without him standing there, like a gap waiting to be filled with a conversation neither of them knew how to start. She stopped at the bottom step, gripping the railing lightly. "I don't want to go in yet." "You don't have to." She looked at me, her expression tender in a way that made my chest ache. "I love him," she whispered. "That's why this hurts so much. Love always makes the cuts deeper." I touched her hand. "He loves you too. But love without understanding can feel like neglect." She closed her eyes, absorbing that. "I wish he understood that I'm not rejecting him. I'm rejecting the pressure, the push, the feeling of being cornered. And one day," I said softly, "he might finally see the difference." The porch creaked behind us, light, hesitant. We both turned. He stood in the doorway, his shoulders lowered, his voice small. "Can we talk?" He stepped onto the porch the way someone approaches a fragile object they're afraid to break further. His hands were tucked awkwardly into his pockets, shoulders rounded, not defensive this time, but uncertain, like a man finally recognizing the size of the silence he helped create. My daughter froze at the bottom step, her breath caught, barely audible. She didn't look away, but she didn't move toward him either. She was bracing, not for anger this time, but for disappointment, the kind that comes wrapped in half apologies and misplaced blame. He cleared his throat. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Her eyes softened, but she stayed rooted. "But you did." He nodded, a small defeated motion. "I know." A moment passed, slow, fragile, tender. Then he exhaled shakily. "I just wanted us to go. I thought if I told you earlier, you'd back out, and I didn't want to go alone." There it was, the truth he'd never said, not a justification, a fear. My daughter's jaw trembled. "So you trapped me into going with you?" He flinched but didn't deny it. "I didn't think of it like that. His voice cracked. "I wanted company. I wanted you, but I didn't want your anxiety to win." She blinked, stunned by the honesty. Her breath wavered. "Dad, my anxiety doesn't win when I listen to it. It wins when you force me into things that break me." He looked down at his shoes. "I'm sorry." The porch light flickered softly above him, casting a warm glow over the moment. Gentle, imperfect, but real. She stepped up one stair, just one. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Her father took one small step closer, stopping at the top of the stairs as if crossing them without permission would shatter everything they'd slowly, painfully uncovered tonight. His fingers tapped nervously against his thigh, an anxious habit he never acknowledged but always carried. "I didn't realize," he said softly, "how hard it really is for you." My daughter looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with a mix of hurt and hope. "I've been trying to tell you for years." "I know," he whispered, "and I kept thinking if I pushed a little, you'd get used to it." He paused, swallowing hard. "I didn't understand it wasn't about getting used to anything. It was about trust." She blinked, her breath hitching. "Yes." He rubbed his forehead, the weight of guilt settling into his shoulders. "I shouldn't have sprung it on you last minute. That wasn't fair, and I shouldn't have dismissed how you felt after. That was worse." Her chest tightened at that. Hearing him name the wound didn't erase it, but it softened the edges. "I wasn't trying to ruin your weekend," he added. His voice thinned. "I wanted a good day, too." A tear slipped down her cheek. "We could have had one. If you'd just told me the truth sooner." He closed his eyes, a pained realization crossing his face. "You're right." For a moment, none of them moved. Then she stepped up another stair, close enough to be reached, far enough to be respected. "I don't want to fight anymore," she whispered. "Neither do I." She hesitated. "Then stop surprising me with people. Stop turning simple plans into something I didn't agree to." He nodded, slow and sincere. "Okay." One word, but enough to begin stitching something back together. The night wrapped around the three of us like a pause we weren't sure how to break. My daughter stood on the second step now, close enough that her father could see the redness around her eyes, the way her breath still trembled at the edges. But she didn't pull back, and he didn't push forward. "I need you to understand something," she said, voice steadier now. "When you surprise me like that, it doesn't just make me uncomfortable, it makes me feel unsafe." He winced, not in anger, but in recognition of a truth he'd avoided. "I never wanted you to feel unsafe with me," he murmured. "But I did," she whispered. "Today, and so many times before." He nodded slowly. "I thought, if I didn't give you time to think, you wouldn't get stuck in your head." She inhaled sharply. "Dad, that is who I am. My brain needs time. My heart needs preparation. My body needs warning. You can't love me by bypassing what I need." His shoulders sagged. "I didn't see it that way." "I know," she said softly, "but now you do." A silence stretched between them, not empty but fragile and full of careful breaths. He took his hands out of his pockets, letting them hang loosely by his sides, a gesture of vulnerability he rarely showed. "I'm going to do better. I don't want to lose days with you because I didn't listen." She swallowed, and her eyes glistened again, but not from pain this time. From relief she wasn't ready to trust, but couldn't ignore either. "You won't lose me," she said quietly. "You'll just have to meet me where I am." He nodded. "I can do that." She stepped onto the third stair, close enough for the air between them to warm, not forgiveness, but something gentler, a beginning made of truth instead of pressure. She stood on that third stair for a long moment, the distance between them held not by tension now, but by caution, the kind you use after touching something sharp too many times. Her father stayed still, letting her decide the pace. For once, he wasn't nudging, coaxing, or hurrying her into a space she hadn't chosen. He was simply waiting. "I need transparency," she said quietly. "If plans change, you have to tell me. Not when we're already in the car. Not when I can't say no. Tell me early. Tell me honestly." "I will," he said. "I need you to give me room to say no without being punished for it." His eyes softened. "You have that room. And," her voice dipped, tender and tired, "I need you to stop seeing my boundaries as obstacles." He inhaled sharply, the truth hitting deeper than any accusation. "I didn't realize I was doing that." "You were," she whispered, "and it made me feel like being myself disappointed you." His face folded, pain, guilt, understanding, all pressed together. "I'm sorry." Not rushed, not defensive, just honest. Her shoulders trembled with relief. She didn't step back. She didn't look away. She simply let that apology land on a wound that had never been acknowledged before. "We can try again," she said softly, "but next time, please don't set me up to fail." "I won't," he vowed. A porch light flickered behind him, dimming then returning to its warm glow, like the house itself exhaled with them. He held out his hand, not reaching for her, not pulling, just offering. A gesture without pressure. She looked at it for a moment, her breath unsteady. Then she lifted her own hand, placing it lightly in his. Not tightly, not fully, but willingly. A soft, cautious connection. A step toward peace that didn't erase the past, but gave the future a chance. Her fingers rested lightly in his. No pressure, no urgency, just the fragile thread of connection between two people trying to relearn each other after years of misunderstandings. He didn't squeeze her hand. He didn't pull her closer. He simply held the moment, letting her decide what came next. She stepped up onto the final stair, standing eye level with him. For the first time all day, there was no anger clouding her face, only the tired echo of everything she had carried alone for far too long. He cleared his throat, voice softer than I'd heard in years. "I should have told you sooner. About today. About everything. I didn't realize how deeply I was hurting you." She nodded slowly. I know you didn't mean to, but intention doesn't erase impact. I understand that now, he said. A beat passed, then another, and she whispered, I needed you to see me, really see me. I do, he answered. Her breath shook, as if she'd been waiting years for those 2 words. Behind them, the house was warm with dim yellow light, casting a gentle glow on the doorway. An invitation, but not a demand. She glanced at it, then back at her father. I'm not okay yet, she said honestly. But I'm not walking away either. He nodded. Take your time. A tear escaped down her cheek, but she didn't hide it. Vulnerability no longer felt like a trap. Not in this moment, not with him finally listening instead of pushing. She released his hand only to reach for the door handle herself, choosing her own pace, her own entry, her own return. And he stepped aside, letting her lead for the first time. The first step toward healing was small, but it was hers. She stepped inside first, not rushing, not shrinking, just moving with the quiet certainty of someone reclaiming space that had once overwhelmed her. The familiar scent of the house drifted toward her. Detergent, old wood, something warm still lingering from the afternoon. It grounded her in a way nothing outside had been able to. Her father followed a few steps behind, but kept a respectful distance. No hovering, no crowding, no pushing, just presence. She set her bag down by the entry table, the sound soft yet final, like placing a boundary gently but firmly where it needed to be. She took a slow breath, letting the air fill her chest without tightening this time. From the doorway, he spoke quietly. Thank you for coming back. She didn't turn yet, but her shoulders eased. I needed space, she said, but I also needed you to hear me. I'm listening, he replied. And when she finally faced him, the look on her face wasn't hardened anymore. It held exhaustion, yes, but also a fragile hope, like someone standing at the edge of a bridge they're not sure will hold, but stepping anyway. She brushed her hair back behind her ear. I want to have good memories with you. Days that feel safe. Days that don't end in arguments or tears. We can have that, he said, if I stop assuming what's best for you. She nodded. If you try, really try, then yes. Silence followed, but it wasn't the cold kind. It was the kind that wraps 2 people in recognition of harm done, of effort offered, of the slow work of mending. She touched the table lightly with her fingertips, grounding herself. I'm still sad about today, she admitted. I won't pretend I'm not. You don't have to pretend, he said. Not with me. Her eyes softened. Maybe, she thought, this was the beginning she'd been hoping for. She moved into the living room, the soft lamplight brushing against her face as she sank slowly onto the couch, not collapsing, just easing into the cushions like someone finally letting herself rest. Her father stayed standing for a moment, uncertain, then chose the armchair instead of sitting beside her, a quiet, intentional distance, respectful. She folded her hands together, thumbs brushing in slow circles, an old grounding habit. I know you wanted today to be nice, she said softly. I know you didn't want to fight. I didn't, he said. I thought, if I kept it simple enough, you'd come anyway. I didn't think about how it would feel for you. Her gaze dropped to her hands. It felt like you didn't trust me to handle the truth. He winced. You're right, and I'm sorry. A long breath moved through her body, loosening something tight in her chest. Not forgiveness, just release. She looked up at him, vulnerable but steady. I don't need you to protect me from my own reactions. I need you to include me in decisions that affect me. Even if you think I'll say no, I'll do better, he promised. And when I say no, she added, her voice light but firm, I need you to hear me, not push, not persuade, not corner me. Just hear me. He nodded, his eyes glistening more than he expected. I can do that. She leaned back, letting the weight of the day roll off her shoulders inch by inch. I still wish today had gone differently, she said quietly. I came home to feel closeness, not pressure. I know, he murmured, and I ruined that. Her eyes softened, not in pity, but in recognition. You didn't ruin us, she said, just the day. The smallest smile ghosted across his face, almost a laugh, almost healing, and for the first time since the parking lot, peace didn't feel out of reach. She pulled one of the throw pillows onto her lap, holding it loosely, not clinging, just giving her hands something soft to touch after a day full of sharp edges. The room felt calmer now, the kind of calm that comes only after truth has been spoken out loud. Her father shifted in the armchair, elbows on his knees, leaning forward but not intruding. I didn't realize how much you carried alone, he said quietly. She looked at him, her expression fragile. I didn't want to burden you. He shook his head slowly. You were never a burden. I just wasn't paying attention to the right things. She exhaled, her shoulders sinking as if finally relieved someone else saw the weight she'd held inside. Every time there's a surprise, my chest gets tight. My hands shake. My mind spirals. I try to hide it so you won't think I'm overreacting. I didn't know it was that intense, he admitted. I told you, she whispered. Just not like this. Silence settled again, but not the cold kind, a warm, listening silence. Then he asked, gently, what could I have done differently today? I want to understand. She hesitated, surprised he asked. Then she answered softly, you could have told me this morning, or yesterday, or any time before I packed a bag and stepped into a car thinking it would be just us. He nodded. You're right. It's not the guests, she said. It's losing the version of the day I thought I could trust. That realization hit him deeper than anything else. She rubbed her palms on the fabric of the pillow, grounding herself. I'm not angry now, just sad. I wanted a good day with you. I miss those. He swallowed hard. I miss them too. Their eyes met across the soft glow of the living room, and for the first time all evening, they didn't look like two people on opposite sides of a misunderstanding, but like two people trying to rebuild something that mattered. The house had gone quiet in the soft, late-night way, where every sound feels gentler. She set the pillow aside and drew her knees up slightly, her voice steadier now, though still carrying the tenderness of the day's wounds. Her father leaned back in the armchair, exhaling a long, tired breath, the kind a person releases only after finally facing something they've avoided for years. His hands hung loosely between his knees, no longer clenched. I want to do this better, he said. I don't want you to feel tricked, or cornered, or overwhelmed. She looked at him with a softness that wasn't forgiveness yet, but was something close. Thank you. He swallowed. You matter to me. Not just the version of you I picture, the real you. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. Then keep choosing me over the idea of who you want me to be. I will, he whispered. She let out a slow breath, relief flickering across her face like light breaking through heavy clouds. I can't promise I'll always react perfectly, she said, but I can promise I'll try to communicate better if you give me space to. He nodded. You'll have it. The quiet wrapped around them again, but now it felt warm, like a blanket instead of a wall. She uncrossed her legs, relaxing into the couch, the smallest hint of peace settling around her shoulders. I still wish today had gone differently, she murmured. So do I. But I'm glad we talked. Me too. She pushed her hair behind her ear. A gesture that made her look younger for a moment, like the little girl who once cried in the back seat after birthday parties that were too loud. He watched her gently, regret and love mixing in his expression. And for the first time that day, she didn't shrink from that gaze. She met it, soft, steady, open.